Parenting is no question one of the hardest jobs in the world. Here to make it a little bit easier, maybe a lot bit easier, is the parenting expert herself and clinical psychologist and wisdom teacher. I love that title, the one and only Dr. Shefali. Dr. Shefali, lovely to see you again right here on MedCircle.
Same here. So excited to be here with you. Let's talk all things parenting.
Yes, let's get into it. Now, last time we talked about this term conscious parenting. What is that and how is it different than traditional parenting?
Yes. So, traditional parenting, the prevalent model that's been out there that you and I were most likely raised with, is a model based on three primary lies. Number one, number one, that parents have control, should have control over their children. And if they don't have control, they can execute control by this thing called parental discipline.
Mm,
Number two, that we should raise super successful, perfect children. And number three, that it's our job to raise happy children. And I can go into these more, but the primary concept behind traditional parenting is that control is the first order of business, and raising these, mythical utopian beings is the second premise, the second goal. And conscious parenting debunks this. It truly sees it for its toxicity, for its dysfunction, and speaks to, instead of connection, first, the deep emotional connection that is and should be the imperative of the parent's vision as their child's guide and usher. And the second premise of raising successful or perfect or utopic beings is that no, we are not here to raise a product. We are here to attune with the child's essence and raise the child in accordance with their highest being, their highest state, but always in flow with who it is they are versus coming in from a top down approach and kind of curating the childhood experience.
That really struck a chord with me when you said it's not our job to raise happy kids. I am not a parent, but my friends who are parents, that seems to be their target goal. I just want my child to be happy. Why is that not the goal?
Well, it's problematic on various levels. So if you just dissect the sentence, I want my child, just there,
Oh, yep, I heard it.
the I want my child to be a certain state. So, first, on a very basic psychological level, happiness is not something you can want. Certainly not for yourself or for another. You can't dictate this state of being. Second, it's a transient state of being anyway. It's fleeting. So to ask a child or yourself to stick with this emotion
Mm,
is a surefire setup for discontentment. Number three, when we have this idea as parents that we want them to be happy, what we really want is for them to be happy because that makes us happy,
yes.
right? We feel successful. And lastly, what we're really portraying with that premise is that all other feelings and emotions are invalid or less worthy. We're going for the golden prize called happiness. Well, guess what? Children are often not happy. In fact,
Mhm.
they seem miserable most of the time, throwing tantrums and fussy and irritable and grumpy. And then, if we're constantly telling them, be happy, A, we feel like failures, but B, we are transplanting them from their core state, their authentic state, and telling them that who it is they are is not good, get to another state,
Wow.
which then just creates more unhappiness. I had a 22-year-old recently who told me, uh, I'm making progress. I had been working with him, and he said, my biggest progress is that I'm allowing myself to be unhappy, right?
Mm,
We are so unhappy being unhappy that that's the unhappiness, really.
mm.
And it's this deep dissatisfaction with anything that doesn't look this cookie cutter, pleasing way that actually serves our egos, but it doesn't teach our children emotional resilience and contentment with who it is they are. So I tell parents to replace the word happiness with presence with authenticity, allowing our children to experience their emotions as they experience them, not as we wish them to experience them.
Of course, this is fantastic. We're 5 minutes in and you're already blowing my mind just like you did last time, Dr. Shefali. I can't recommend your book enough. It is absolutely fantastic. The conscious parenting map.
Right.
Um,
This is the book. It's called
yes,
The Parenting
the
Map.
parenting map. Fantastic. I sent 2 copies, one to my brother and one to his wife for their kid. It is, and I like how you talk about the book, Dr. Shefali, is you talk about it as a guide. You talk about it as a manual that parents can go to with a lot of knowing that this is going to be the right decision, the effective decision, the one that's holistic for the family. Where do you think most parents are struggling with their kids?
I think, okay, so social media and bullying and societal pressures to conform, notwithstanding, the deeper foundational place where parents struggle is in this movie that they've created for the grandchild, that there's this museum piece that they are curating, and the delta between that movie and then the reality.
Yeah.
And we can't let go of that movie. We want our child to be this super achiever, super perfect, super adult, mature human being that even we're not. And we're forgetting that a childhood in its nature is a very distinct, supremely unique state which has a different mandate. The mandate of a child is to discover, to explore, to mess up, to fail, to be messy, to be unpredictable, to
Hmm.
procrastinate, to dawdle, to be bored, to be in fantasy. That is the brain of a child.
Hmm.
So we want that brain to become this adult, mature, linear, preemptive, for planning sort of brain. And we keep clashing with who our children are and who children are in general to what we want them to be as adults, and then also the perfect adult, an adult that even you and I are perhaps not. But
Yeah.
we impose this on our children because we come from this psychological dearth and lack. And because we don't feel good enough, we want to create these magical, mythical creatures to compensate for our lack. And we don't want to own this. And this is the bitter pill that I give to parents, and that they have to swallow in order to then reach the utopia of conscious parenting, which is connecting with our children, accepting our children for who it is they are, flowing with their authentic nature versus constantly, degrading and shaming them for who it is they are.
Yeah. I'm 37 years old and I am still consciously trying to get my dad's approval, trying to get him to like what I do, trying to impress him. I'm still trying to impress my father. Why do you think I do that?
Because you're a hopeless case. No. Well, you do that because somewhere you have not fathered yourself enough,
Yeah.
and you haven't yet allowed yourself to step into your worth. You have it, but for some reason you've decided in your subconscious that that paternal figure is the one who is going to endorse you.
Yeah.
And maybe you're afraid to let go of that, because to let go of that means you become your own self endorser,
Yeah.
and you then grow up into the man that you see him as, but you are. And there's some hesitancy in you to go, okay, the buck stops here. If he's not giving it in the way I need or want, he is done. I'm going to fire him from that responsibility. It's mine. And when you do, I think you're going to step into an even greater vision for yourself,
Mhm.
which is devoid and separate from the opinion of those you value the most. Now, that is true awakening and adulthood, where we can separate from the desire of the approval of those we want it the most from.
Yeah. 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 I think I'm taking only the first few steps towards that road to awakening, but you're nailing it. When you said endorsement, that's the exact word. I crave it. I need to look into that certainly more in therapy. I now it makes me think how great your book would be for even non-parents just to reflect on how we were parented. Where do you think parent styles originate from?
Well, first, we have an essential essence, our temperament that
Mm,
comes with us. And you just can't override that. And that's what I teach in this book, The Parenting Map. I have a whole section on understanding your child's temperament. So there's temperament. So the child grows up to be a parent. The temperament I had as a child is still here as a parent. And then that temperament confluences with the caregiving you got from your parents and from culture's influence. And that's the hodgepodge that creates the parenting style. I talk about 5 styles in my book, The Parenting Map. I talk about the fighter parent, who's your typical, angry exploder. They adopt that egoic style when triggered. There's the fixer parent that employs anxiety. I'm that parent. There is the feigner parent that is all about attention seeking and being endorsed by society. There's the freezer parent that has the template of avoidance. And then the fleer parent who has the template of abandonment.
mm,
So, depending on our temperament, plus our caregiving, our early childhood experiences, and culture, we then create a pattern when we're triggered. And it's very important for us to recognize when I'm triggered, what is my default emotion? Many fathers, for example, will say that their first gear is avoidance, to be a freezer, and then very quickly is anger,
mm,
aggression. And many women will say theirs is typically we start off as fixers, if we're people pleaser kind of women, and then we quickly go to anger too. So all roads could lead to anger, but we start off differently. And again, it's because when we're triggered, we revert back to a dominant blueprint that was set in childhood. So
mm.
it really is important for us as parents or adults in relationships to recognize our styles, right? There's a lot of talk around attachment styles.
Yep.
Are you an avoidant? Are you an anxious? So this is a kind of a different variation of that. And it's really powerful when you see, wow, I'm in the same loop and I'm causing my own anxiety, my own greatest suffering. And I have the power to disrupt that.
Yeah. Please feel free to correct my phrasing on this next question, but how do parents mess up their kids?
In all sorts of innumerable and infinite ways. Um, we mess up our children mainly by believing we are not messing them up. We mess up our children mainly by thinking we're not a mess up.
Hmm,
We mess up our children because we refuse to do the inner work and heal. We refuse to see how much we're projecting, like it's constant projection. And that's the main way we mess up our children. And when I say projection, what I mean by that is because we're not aware of our own inner lack and our own garbage that is still unhealed within us, we then project a compensatory view and expectation of our children. So the greater degree, to the degree I am unhappy within, insecure within, lacking self-worth within, the more I will compensate that in my projection of my child and want her or him to be better looking, skinnier, or whatever, more athletic, or more fit, or more clever, or more fitting in with the social circles in ways so that I can then feel, okay, I'm see, my child is good. That means I'm good. And what we don't realize is that we are not allowed to do that.
yeah.
Our child gets to be whoever they are. Of course, we guide them. Of course, we usher them into rational, emotional intelligence, but we cannot project onto them how they should be beyond a point,
Yeah.
beyond a point, and certainly after the age of 17, 20. We don't have much say and we need to let go.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Easier said than done, but loud and clear. On May 22nd, MedCircle is providing a complimentary workshop for anybody who would like to attend. There will be a number of psychologists and psychiatrists leading you through actionable exercises, everything from difficult personalities and relationships to inner child work and healing trauma. It will be a free event. And if you can't attend live, all good. We will send you the replay. Just use the links below this video to access that live complimentary workshop. And this, of course, is in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. Dr. Shefali, if someone is, we'll call them a traditional parent, they're not a conscious parent yet, but they're listening to this, they pick up your book, they start implementing strategies. What's the kid going to think when dad used to be really overbearing and dominant and yelling, but now he's trying to connect and give me space and all of these things? What do we see the kids doing when they see this transition or transformation with their parents?
Well, it's like when you are with a friend, right? And the friend is exploding all the time, and then suddenly the friend doesn't explode. You're like, hello, where's my friend? What have you been smoking? So many times parents will tell me that their children do a double take
Yeah.
because they're expecting, right? We get into these feedback loops of stagnation and we're expecting. We're like, huh? You didn't protest?
Yeah.
You didn't yell? You didn't judge me? And it takes time, but parents will tell me that their children, their partners will immediately notice that I mean, it's typically the mom's on some other trip, like
Yeah.
where's mom? And then they eventually get used to it, but it does take time and no one believes it at first, and we expect the other shoe to drop, and so children will test the parent. And I tell parents that just because you've turned the corner and you've become conscious, don't expect everyone to now just be on board.
Yeah.
There's a lot of residual pain and suffering that your unconsciousness caused that is going to need to be worked through. So don't be all upset and go, oh, well, I'm trying now. And why aren't you responding? And why aren't you being loving? Oh, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
You are being conscious because you are being conscious for yourself.
Right.
Don't
Right.
expect your partners and children to just like, oh, suddenly, sing to your tune. It's not that way. And it takes time for children to adapt to the new person. So you cannot be doing this for some quick fix feedback. You're doing this because it truly is an indicator of your healing. So that's why I tell people conscious parenting is nothing to do with the child.
Yeah.
It has all to do with your own healing. And if it's your healing, it's your healing. So you're healing. And so that's why you're non reactive.
Yeah.
Don't be non reactive and positive just because you're doing a strategy, because that will not last.
You're saying don't do this in order to change your child or get them to act a certain way. Do this for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And do it because you truly are healing.
Yeah.
And it's now your new way of being. It's just like don't diet for the wedding
Yeah.
and then that's it. It's not going to be sustainable. Your
Yeah.
body is going to know and try to trick you again into falling back into old patterns. So it is with our children. Don't do this for a desired outcome. Do this work because you truly see that you are unconscious and that you are missing pieces of your own growth.
Hmm.
Do this for you. And then when you do, now you are resplendent, you are radiant with those teachings. It now becomes a way of life and not a quick fix strategy.
Do you think that conscious parenting positively influences children as it relates to mental health? For example, would an unconscious parent be more likely to promote feelings of anxiety, stress, depression in their child than than a conscious parent would?
Yes, conscious parenting is about emotional regulation.
Mm.
Conscious parenting is about undoing the toxic damage of perfectionism, of unrealistic expectations, of of projecting your anxieties and fears onto your children when they are not theirs to bear. So conscious parenting is all about emotional attunement,
Hmm.
validation, not shaming. When your child comes to you, connecting with them instead of just blatantly, outrightly correcting them and controlling them. So these are the ingredients of the healthiest relationships. You and I know what we want from our adult relationships. We want someone to see us, to hear us, to validate us, to honor us. And that's what I teach in conscious parenting. I've only written now, this is my fourth book on parenting, because parents need this. They need this kind of training because they themselves have been so dismissed and invalidated from childhood. They don't know what it means to give heart and give approval and give unconditional acceptance to another human being. But that's what raises self-worth. And when a child feels completely met by their parent, they walk in the world with this assured state of ease
Mm.
and belonging. They don't need to fit into a social group. They belong because that bond between parent and child, especially mother and child, is so sedimented that it lasts when they go out into the world.
That leads me to my next question. Is there ever a point where it's too late to be a conscious parent?
Listen, I'm not going to pretend like, oh, it's never too late. Um, because there is a window of optimal development, and that's
Mhm,
childhood. It's from
mhm,
0 to 7 to 10 to 13.
mhm,
But listen, if your child is 21, mine is almost 21,
mhm,
I can still really mess up.
mm,
So while I'm not shaping the nooks and crevices of her foundational psyche,
mhm,
I can royally mess up at 21.
mm.
So I can mess up at 45. Your father may still be messing up with you, who knows? But it's not about the foundational years are the foundational years, but there's always opportunity to not mess up as much and to do it better.
Yeah.
So we again and again, it's about the parent healing themselves. So regardless, what is the age limit for that?
Right, right, absolutely. Dr. Shefali, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. I say this, I've interviewed you 3 or 4 times. I I fell in love with you the first 10 seconds of the first interview we had. The way you tackle this topic, in my opinion, is the way we should be tackling this topic. I want to thank you on behalf of all the parents out there for giving us this
This is the
roadmap.
book. This
Yes.
is the book. It's a map. It's 20 steps. I can't get the light. There you go. It's called the parenting map. It's my how to be a conscious parent.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we'll link to it in the bottom of this video. And while you're in the description, grab the book and also attend or register to attend our live event on May 22nd. Lots of psychologists and psychiatrists there on a variety of topics. You can learn more, of course, at medcircle.com. Dr. Shefali, thank you again.
Of course.
Thank you for watching this. I'm Kyle Kittleson. Remember, whatever you're going through, especially you parents, whatever you're going through, you got this.